Okay, so it's about time to start the conference. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants from around the world. I'm Chu-Hsuan Hsueh from Japan Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. On behalf of the program co-chairs, Michael Hartig from the University of Passau, Germany, and also myself, I would like to warmly welcome you to the International Conference on Advances in Computer Games 2025. So let's get on. Let me start with a brief history of the conference. The predecessor of ACG, which is ACC, Advances in Computer Chess, was first held in 1975 and took place every 3 years. And since 1981, it was organized by ICCA, International Computer Chess Association, which was later renamed and rescoped to ICGA, International Computer Games Association, in 2002. And since 1999, the conference broadened its scope beyond chess and adopted the current name. It's now held every 2 years and alternating with the Computers and Games Conference. And here's an overview of this year's, the 19th ACG conference. We received 30 submissions and one was text rejected. The other went through a paper review process. And each paper received at least 2 reviews and most received 3. Based on reviewers' evaluations, we accepted 18 papers for presentation and organized into 6 sessions. In addition, we have an opening speech and 3 keynote talks. A quick note for the ICGA journal. ACG2025 authors are welcome to submit an extended version of their conference paper to the journal. Ideally, the extended version will be reviewed by the same reviewers to help speed up the review process. And another announcement is about the ICGA conference in the next year. Computers and Games 2026 will return to an in-person event, and it will be held in Maastricht in the Netherlands in June. So stay tuned to the ICGA website for more updates. And also don't miss the closing remark on day 3, where the main organizer, Dennis Sommers, will share more information about the upcoming event. And now a quick overview about the ACG 2025 program. This year's conference lasts for 3 days, and you can find all the details by scanning the QR code on the slide. And as an international online conference, it is always very challenging to create a schedule that works for all presenters in different time zones and keeps a related topic together. Nevertheless, we believe that this year's arrangement is fairly reasonable. Specifically on day 1, October 21st, is the Eastern America friendly time. We will have an opening speech by Jon Edwards, a keynote talk by Ingrid Bjørnsen, and 2 paper sections, Game Solvers and Engagement and Fairness. Day 2 on October 22nd is Europe friendly. We will have a keynote talk by Mark Winners and 2 paper sections, Large Language Models and Learning and Research. And day 3, the final day, on October 23rd, we will have a talk by Jaap Liu and 2 paper sections, Human Gameplay and Imperfect Information Games. And let me briefly introduce our keynote speakers, who will share their inspiring insights throughout the conference. Ingrid Bjørnsen from the Rebecca University will share his experience, his thought on explainable AI in chess. And Mark Winners from the Maastricht University will present the new adventures with multi-card research. And Jaap Liu from Lingnan University will discuss playing the game of game design. We are equally delighted to have Jon Edwards, the ICCF Grandmaster and the 32nd World Correspondence Chess Championship, as our opening speaker. He will open the conference with his talk on the future of the game of chess. And a quick note about the Zoom environment. First of all, we would like to thank the Center for Innovative Distance Education and Research at JICE for providing this online environment. And the Zoom link will be used for all sessions during the 3 days. And please keep your microphone muted and your cameras off unless you are speaking. And if you wish to comment or ask questions, please use the raise hand function or the Q&A channel. And also, if you want, you can turn on the live transcript function. So to make this conference possible, many people have contributed their time and effort. On behalf of the program co-chairs, I would like to express our sincere gratitude. First, thank you to all program committee members and reviewers for your timely and thorough work. Thank you to our keynote and opening speakers for bringing such fascinating topics. And thank you to the session chairs for coordinating the presentations. Thank you to the ICGA secretariats, especially York Helmos, for handling the financial and organizational matters. And thank you to all paper authors, no matter whether your paper was accepted or not, for sharing your work with us. And finally, thank you to all the attendees for joining this event. We hope this conference will serve as a great platform for exchanging ideas and exploring new research topics. And last but not least, we would like to express our special thanks to the advisory committee, Jaap and Herik from Leiden University, who is also the president of ICGA. His dedication and support has been essential for making this conference possible. And Jaap has also prepared some greeting and will introduce our opening speaker. So please join me in welcoming the president of ICGA, Professor Jaap van den Herik. So Jaap, it's now your turn.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Dear ICGA members, and also dear games aficionados, thank you for being present here online. And this is only a brief welcome. A somewhat larger welcome will be published in the journal and in the proceedings under the title The Immortal Dream, Solving Chess with the Power of AI. First of all, I would like to thank my predecessor Jonathan Schäfer for his heritage to me, namely the flourishing ICCA community as you see here around. You did a good job, Jonathan, very good, thank you. This holds also for your predecessor, the predecessor of my predecessor, David Levy. David, also thank you for all the work you did previously prior to Jonathan. It was a pleasure to collaborate with you over the years. And I hope that we continue the cooperation and the friendship also. Then I would like to go to thank Michael Hartish and Chu-Hsuan Hsueh for the ingenuity and the perseverance during the whole trajectory, from recruiting helper to organizing this worldwide online event. Thank you very, very, very much for all your effort over 3 years of organizing such an event. Every very in the previous line is meant for 1 year. At the end of this short introduction, I would like first to go a little bit deeper into our ICGA dream, and that is the immortal dream of solving chess with the power of AI. The game of chess, with its thousands of years of history, has always been the ultimate test for the human mind. The dream of definitely solving the game, of knowing for every position whether it is a win, a loss or a draw, seemed long like science fiction. But the science of game solvers, a central theme at the upcoming ACG 2025 conference, is bringing us closer than ever before. The Netherlands, my country as you know, holds a rich history in both the chess world and computer science. Consider Max Euwe, the only Dutch world chess champion and gifted mathematician. His intellectual legacy bridges the gap between human chess and the logic of machines. In later years, Grandmaster Jan Timman stood at the top, one of the last great exponents of classical human chess before computers demonstrated their true power by using computer programs for analyzing chess positions and for composing chess studies. That was also a remarkable fact. The vision of solved game took concrete shape through pioneers like Hans Berlinger, whose chess computer Hightech was the first to defeat Grandmaster in 1988. Berlinger was a staunch advocate for completely understanding and conquering games. He was also a source of inspiration for Jonathan Schaefer and his team at the University of Alberta. They developed between 1989 and 2007 the checkers program Chinook. In 1993, Chinook defeated the then human world champion Marion Tinsley in a 40-game match. It was with 4 wins, 2 losses and 33 draws. In 2007, the team weekly solved the game with as a result, it is a draw. In 2023, the game of Othello was solved by Hiroki Takisawa. Now we are eagerly waiting and looking forward for further progress, and in particular for a proven outcome of the game of chess. The ACG program continues this pursuit by dedicating an entire session to game solvers. I'm curious to it. And now, where are we now? We are at the opening of the ACG 2025. And the opening speech will be delivered by Jon Edwards. He will address the future of the game of chess. This theme highlights how advanced algorithms and artificial intelligence, including a discussion on explainable AI in chess and the application of Monte Carlo research and large language models, are changing our perception of the game, and also LLMs. They are now even being employed for tasks like real-time expert chess commentary and for measuring the statistic similarity between human and engine-generated moves in games like Chinese chess. Chess may not be fully solved yet, but the scientific quest by researchers globally, inspired by the heritage of giants like Euwe and facilitated by the newest AI techniques, promises many new adventures in the world of advanced computer games. The chess world stands on the eve of a new era. And I would like here to open the conference for this year. And I would like to thank you, Jon, for giving us the honor to act as opening speaker, since at this moment you are heavily involved in the current cycle of the 34th World Correspondence Chess Championship. Jon, whatever the case, the floor is yours, and I wish you much success with your first with your presentation, and then, and that's for you even more important, the continuation of the remaining games in the 34th World Computer Chess Correspondence Chess, not Computer Chess, World Correspondence Chess Championship cycle. Keep in mind, once a world champion, always a world champion. Thank you for your attention, and this conference is open by now, and the floor is either the organization, so you, Chu-Hsuan, or Michael, or Jon. Please take up your task, and I wish you a good conference. And as you may understand, I remain the whole 3 days here to look what you are doing. And then, of course, we look forward to the next ICCA journal, as now, I would say, governed by the new editor, Mark Winans. Now, new, he is already old, but we know him all, and he is doing his utmost to keep the credits of the journal for you in a very good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaap. All right. Should I load my slides now?
Yes, fine.
All right. Well, I thank the committee for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and thank you all for being here. The first slide obviously has my image on it, but more importantly, it has a chessboard with a position that comes from one of my games from the 1970s. But I have long regarded it as a very interesting test case. Back in the 70s and all the way through the 90s, the brute force engine struggled substantially in solving this. I'll come back with a solution. I'm leaving it up there long enough simply that those of you who are interested should jot down the unique solution that it is white to move and win. Again, the hint is that the brute force engines has struggled to solve this, but neural nets solve it within milliseconds, which I think should give us all some pause. Many of you are familiar undoubtedly with chess literature, and one of the most interesting series was Garry Kasparov's My Great Predecessors, a substantial series, 11 volumes, in which he talked at great length about his predecessors, and his conclusion was that each world champion brought something important and unique to the game. Capablanca in the upper left, in my view, an idol of mine, and in my mind, what he brought to the game was an understanding that it wasn't what move you played, but rather where your pieces belonged. Petrosian, another hero in the lower right, took a kind of derivative of that kind of feeling. Instead of just where pieces belonged, it was about which exchanges, which pieces, and in what order. And he, as a magician, would achieve a target position. He understood positions remarkably and beat people without them really understanding why they'd been beat. The derivative of Petrosian, in my mind, was Karpov in the upper right. And what he managed to do was to extend Petrosian's approach to the game and extended it to specific structures, most notably positions like the hedgehog, in which he certainly was grandmasterly and understood exactly where his pieces belonged, what exchanges, in what order, and what kinds of endgames he was attempting to achieve from any given structure. That brings us to Carlsen in the lower left, who used this exact kind of thinking, again, a kind of derivative, but extended that kind of thinking throughout the entire opening book. If we can use this hypothesis and extend it to correspondence chess players, then what is it that I brought to the game, or that correspondence players have? In my case, I think I brought luck, but that's a way of downplaying some of the achievements. I think that what many correspondence players have done is to achieve a marriage between the kind of thinking that you see on the screen with technical expertise as well. The chess skills are rare. The technical skills are rare. The combination of them is as rare as radium. And that's why there are so few correspondence players who've managed to achieve these kinds of heights. Just by the briefest background, this Hans Berliner in the lower left became world chess champion in 1965 by relying on books primarily, and the moves were sent by postcards, as is shown here. That actually is one of the postcards that he sent in this event. And you'll see that he won a substantial number of these games using this kind of method. Berliner, of course, had access to Bell, but we'll put that aside for another day to talk about. This was my win in 1996, some 30 years later, in the North American Invitational. The nature of the sources has changed. These are substantially books, in this case, the Informants in Noon Chess, which are easily indexed and easily used. But ChessBase has suddenly emerged, and it's possible, in fact, to record the games. The machines are at this point not very strong, to be candid with you, but there are techniques that are possible here, looking for all games that reach certain positions, in terms of structure, looking for all games that reach that structure, and being able to tell get a better sense of which moves are most likely the most successful candidate moves. And you can see that there's still substantial numbers of wins here, and I won by a full point, which is pretty unheard of by modern standards. This was the World Championship that I won. The books have been replaced. This is Junior in the lower left, my wonderful server, a book that I wrote, Chess Base Complete, that I really, if I was going to use a program for 14 or 16 hours a day, I was going to become fairly expert in it. In the middle, the databases that were used from the these are substantial collections of games, up to 9-10 million, that can be searched remarkably quickly. And you'll notice that in this environment, with machines suddenly at the forefront and chess-based use now well understood, thanks in part to my book, that I won the championship with a very narrow +2 score. And frankly, I was fairly lucky, in my view, to have obtained that. I won this on tiebreak by 0.25 over 3 other competitors. This is what modern correspondence chess looks like. This is the command center that I have on the servers that I have to the left. There are 3 of them in this house. We have the largest, the highest electric bill in all of Mercer County, New Jersey, but I digress. This is a list of all of my games. Clicking on one will bring up the game, so that gives me an opportunity to see the move, the amount of time left, and to make my move and send it. These are the events that I'm in, etc. And these are just a handful of the databases that are available. By no means are these the most. Chessbase 17 is nothing, Frank. It's just a database. Think of it as a container of containers, that the containers themselves are the databases. Here, a mega database, an opening encyclopedia, a correspondence chess database. These are the standard databases that are released by Chessbase itself, but by no means are these the key databases that are used in correspondence play, although they are comprehensive and can be maintained and kept up to date. These are the databases that most correspondence players use, and this requires another set of skills that were required really to maintain our databases, sometimes on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. The strongest of the databases is maintained by the ICCF, the International Correspondence Chess Federation, and they release their data on a monthly basis. These are the most carefully played games in the world. And even Magnus Carlsen and most grandmasters rely upon the database that is obtained here, this ICCF Games Archive, as the primary database. Ultra Core is an astounding achievement by Tim Murray in Britain, in which he's accumulated not only this data, but data from correspondence chess leagues and other correspondence sources to achieve an even larger database. And my current database, the one that I rely on, is in fact this database, augmented by various sources that I personally maintain. Chess Publishing is a service provided by a series of 13 or 14 grandmasters who provide data on a monthly basis. And there is Mark Crowther's amazing achievement, TWIC, the Week in Chess, in which he provides weekly access to all of the games in chess. This is important, but most of these games are over the board, and therefore the quality, remarkably enough, is not as high as the correspondence chess databases themselves. This is one of the most interesting databases that has emerged in just the last year. It is a neural net, basically, that is functioning in China, that is working all the time. It is now the largest opening database in the world, and all of the data is verified by neural nets, and you can literally put in a position and it will give you its recommendations based upon neural net analysis. It is not well known. I've provided the link for those of you who want to try it out, and it really is extraordinary. And it's simply another part of the correspondence chess players' daily arsenal. Preparing for an opening is primarily a chess-based function. You pick the database that you want to work with, you put a position on here, and it will literally tell you every single time the position has occurred, in what game, with what percentage, with what kinds of results, who are the players who use it most often. This is obviously an essential component. We used to buy lots of chess books. There's no need for a chess book. A chess book, once published, is out of date the moment it's published. And this, of course, is current. So long as you maintain your data, this kind of approach is current up until the night before, when the data was last available. These are 2 other approaches. If you run, not if, but when you run an engine, There is a facility called Let's Check within ChessBase that literally shows every other engine, all the largest engine runs that have occurred in that position. So you don't necessarily feel a need to run this your own personal engine to great depth if it's already been run to depth. If there's a problem with this approach, it's that it's not terribly discriminating with regard to what engine is being used. And if you have a strong preference with regard to that engine, in my case, there are neural nets that I personally believe are the best engines in the world, and hint, they are not named Stockfish, that it's possible, in fact, to this augments this. The problem with this is that so long that it is recording your run unless you disconnect. If you disconnect, you don't see the runs that other people have had, but by disconnecting, you're not sharing your own runs. It's a bit like being a general in charge of an army and not wanting to share your battle plans with anybody. Livebook is almost as large, used to be larger than the Chinese neural net database that I just showed. The problem with this is that while it is substantially large, it uses a combination of both brute force and neural net engines. It simply reflects the analysis that others are doing, and therefore is, in my view, somewhat less reliable, but still an interesting source. And none of these sources should be avoided. Many of my colleagues have pointed out that the move that appears most recently in here, the one that is currently under the most scrutiny, is usually the best move. That's an interesting way of approaching this, but it's a little bit too simplistic, personally, for my tastes. Preparing for an opponent, and all of my opponents are required to play in the ICCF, and every single game is recorded. So in this case, I was preparing for a match against Dan Fleetwood, and I was able trivially to bring up every game that Fleetwood had completed with black, and it puts it into a nice matrix here so that I can easily see how he has fared against each of these opening moves. And it is in about 5 minutes, perhaps less. I can accurately forecast precisely where my game is very likely to go all the way through to about move 20. I will know this for every single game in which I'm paired, including those in the World Championship, and it gives me an opportunity to prepare something new for each of those games. There are remarkable tools for the middle game. I won the U.S. Championship and the North American Invitation, I personally believe, on the back of this facility. This looks like a simple search facility, but it gives an opportunity to put structures down and to find all instantiations of that structure within the entire 10 or 12 million game database, and to do so very quickly. Back in the days of ChessBase 4, I used a program called Motif, which was actually a compiler for chess, which allowed me to put together fairly intricate structures, so that in addition to finding all games with a specific structure, I was able to iteratively look at what happened when the rooks were in various positions, when the pieces are in certain places, and to piece together a kind of target, very much like the kind of thing that Carlson and Petrosian have put together for specific structures. And so that work now takes on far more interesting meaning, that rather than letting a machine simply run in a position, and it might tell me that rook at A to C is worth 0.32 and that rook at A to D is worth 0.33, and that doesn't tell me very much about which of these moves to play. But by actually looking at the 200 or 300 games that reach this structure and looking at what happens when the rook at A is on C or the rook at A is on D, it becomes fairly easy, remarkably easy, to know where the rooks belong. And of course, there are the table bases, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the origin of these, save that Bell Labs was instrumental, and that while while Ken Thompson was at the forefront of that work, a good friend of mine, Brian Kernahan, who had worked with Ken and with Dennis Ritchie on building Unix and C++, I have to tell you that I don't know how they actually ever got around to doing the work on Unix and C++, because this group cared more about chess than they did about their programming. And I know this for a fact, because at Princeton I had the office next to Brian, and it was amazing that either one of us got any work done, because we were standing in each other's doorsteps for hours just doing what we loved, which of course was talking about chess and not doing the work we were supposed to do. So this is the realm of the modern correspondence chess player, you might imagine. And in the background, I have lots of books. This is my main office, but I tend to use these far more than anything else. And it explains, in fact, why some people are still prevailing in the game of correspondence chess as opposed to everybody. Why isn't everybody rated 2580? Some of us are actually reading these books. Some of us are actually working on our own neural nets. Some of us are actually attempting, in the case of neural nets, to create them in such a way that they're based upon, the rules don't change, which is wonderful, but the experience base can change. And by building a neural net based upon sources that I believe are extremely credible, it's possible to create a neural net that is far better tuned for the requirements of correspondence chess. And as I can say, this is the required reading. There are no more opening books. There are still some, but as I indicated earlier, they're out of date the moment that they're written, and therefore not terribly valuable in my view. Far better to write your own. And that sounds daunting. I'm going to write a book for every opening I get. Yes, and with these tools, each book takes less than 5 minutes to create. These are some of the conventional engines, brute force and the rest, and we're all familiar with the idea that a brute force engine has a horizon effect. But with the servers operating at the speeds that they are, it's still important occasionally to run some of these because they provide an independent view of what's happening. The horizon effect is so deep and so far out there that these are still a worthy tool in the arsenal. Here, of course, are just some of the neural nets, not the ones that I'm currently using, but Layla, of course, made quite a splash. Stockfish, of course, is popular and free. Fritz probably shouldn't have its picture here since it borrowed some of the code from Stockfish and the rest. In any event, but almost every single player does run Stockfish at this point, and imagine trying to have to beat it with some kind of regularity. The cloud engines, I'm mentioning only because this is an extraordinary programming accomplishment, and I think worthy of mentioning even here. A good friend of mine and somebody with whom I've worked has assembled this server. I'm not going to go into it, save to suggest it is an extremely powerful server, and because of the help that I provided him, he has shared the engines that he's put up. And so these are, I took this morning, these are the neural net engines that he has running on his server. And I have the ability, although these engines are running in Florida, I'm in New Jersey, I have the opportunity to bring these in trivially and run them as if they were running on my own machine. This has changed an awful lot. It means that grandmasters who are playing over the board can travel and still have access to this kind of hardware, still have access to hardware and these approaches wherever they happen to be. It is also possible, if you're not running your own server, to rent them from ChessBase or from Chessify, from various other sources that make them available for a fee. This is eye-opening. I won the World Championship, the 32nd. This is the result of the 33rd. And with everything that I'm describing, you get a sense that life has changed. There's not a single win here, with the obvious exception of the fact that Alexander Dronov, who won the World Championship 3 times and was trying for an unprecedented 4th, died sadly in the middle of the event. And the rules, these were judged to be wins, despite the fact that he had all of the games fully under control. I object to that rule, but this is not the place to voice that objection. Suffice it to say, this is a veritable sea of draws, and speaks very much to what it is that I want to talk to you in the remainder of my time with you. I hope I still have some time. These are the questions I most asked. People still play correspondence chess. How do you know you didn't cheat? There is no way to cheat. We are allowed to use these sources. The rules have made it possible. Don't prohibit anyone from using any of the tools that I have shown you. How is it possible that a 72-year-old in this case can win a World Chess Championship? I am pretty manic about it, and 14 to 16-hour days for a decade will help to explain that. Why not just let the computer make every move? I hope I've addressed that, because the computer does not make, occasionally does still make, what I would regard as suboptimal moves. It's not the player with the most powerful machine, it's the player, in fact, who knows how to use this equipment. I got lucky, I'm happy to admit that. And then after they've put me through the mill, and these questions are questions that I happen not to like hearing, but I hear them a lot, and they get around to asking what the best engine is, and I tend not to answer that. But these are the questions that I think are the most important. Why isn't every correspondence chess player rated 2560? I hope to address that in the few minutes left. Why do neural nets still play other neural nets? And the answer to that is easy. They're often given suboptimal starting positions. Why are some correspondence players still winning? I'll explain that. And is correspondence chess the canary in the coal mine? Yes, I do think so. We have, as a group, everyone here has poured themselves into seeking a solution to this game, with the result that it's happening here first and now extending throughout the rest of our social existence and personal one. I gave this position at the very beginning. Hopefully you wrote down a solution. The solution which the brute force engines struggled with is h4. It does win in every line. I know it looks horrible. It even looks horrible for the brute force engines. The neural nets find it absolutely instantly after h4 and takes. The king will be able to get both of these pawns, and the pawn, the central passer in the center, will triumph. Any move other than h4 allows h5 and a 2-on-1 majority that will keep the king occupied on this side of the board and prevent a win. My approach up until about 2018 was heavily influenced by brute force engines, and running an engine for 7 days found bishop to d3, winning in every line. This was a significant novelty over games by Anand, among others. And gave me, I think, a substantial reputation, and beat Lobanov, who at the time was the reigning correspondence chess champion of the Soviet Union, of Russia. This is where I wanted to spend my time with you, because this is astounding. This is a game from the World Chess Championship, the one that I won. This is a game against Osipov, also from Russia. And the key here, the nature of this is, I believe that the game, the thrust of this is, has the game been solved methodologically for any position? Am I simply not able to use the tools that I've just shown you to find, the optimal path? But this one is a very interesting and challenging position. I recognized in the position on the left, which actually did occur, that if the black's b pawn, if Osipov's b pawn, currently on b6, reached b3, forget about how that happens. If the pawn were on b3, it would arrive at a structure that looked like this, and in which white had this target position. White would simply migrate, not simple, I suppose, migrate the king to a1, double the rooks on g, provide the knight and the queen to support the advanced g5. And in this position, regardless of where black's pieces are situated, white is winning here. Therefore, all I needed to do, and I recognize this as a human being, but the engine still resists this. It said I had an advantage of about 0.25. The real question was, could I force black to advance the pawn to b3? I was able, by attacking the pawn on a4 with the knight, the bishop, and possibly with bishop c2 and queen to d1, to mount so much pressure upon the a pawn that he'd be forced to move the b pawn. And that's precisely what happened. This entire affair, and getting the pawn to b4, took another 40 moves. I was able to do this. I could not, however, force the pawn to b3 within a 50-move rule. I do believe it would have been possible, but not within the rules of chess, which say that the game ends in a draw if 50 moves have occurred without a pawn move or capture. And I could not force the pawn all the way to b3, and that is why this game ended in a draw. But it's an extraordinary thing that a human being is capable of understanding that if the pawn reaches, of recognizing this target position, using the methods of Petrosian. Yes, I need to double the rooks, bring the king here, etc. And all of this would have been possible had the pawn been forced to b3. Human beings are capable of this kind of thinking. Are neural nets? I sometimes have my doubts. I think this kind of thinking is entirely human. And there may be, I have not run across them, but there may be positions within fixed structures in which this kind of approach, a very human approach, still gives some life to chess. Having said that, we saw the cross table from the World Championship, the 33rd, in which everything basically was drawn. So here are my quick conclusions. Have we solved this game methodologically? Quite possibly. Do modern tools permit a technologically aware human to play error-free chess? I believe so. Databases and our experience result in a comprehensive opening book without question. The table bases are now at 7 pieces. This leaves, between openings and the endgame, just a small conversation in the middle. The question, of course, is how large is that conversation? Can we extend that conversation within fixed structures such that in these long maneuvering positions, is there still a challenge to today's neural nets? That is what I wanted to talk about. Those are the conclusions that I've arrived, practically speaking, from my work. And I leave it up to all of you if you have questions or concerns. I'm here for the next few minutes.
I'm not completely sure who is the chair, but maybe I have given the introduction, but also I would like to act as chair now, since nobody is. It was fantastic. Jon, congratulations, and first an applause.
Thank you.
Okay, and then of course we are open to a few questions. We have say 1 or 2 minutes. Just let me try to do that. Who would like to have the first question? If nobody is, then Jonathan probably. Jonathan, do you have a question? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know that I really have any particular questions. I was really fascinated, though, with this last position that you showed us with the 50 move rule. I fully understand exactly what you're saying, being a chess player myself. I'm actually still intrigued how you might be able to get the pawn forced to get to b4. But I'm assuming you figured that all out, and
Just to intrude on your question, yeah, the key here is to mount significant pressure coming down the C file such that C takes on B5 would mount an exchange sack on C5 that he would have to avoid by pushing the pawn from B5 to B4. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's just I mean, black can have a couple of pieces, both rooks on the C file, the queen on D6, the knight on, just it looks hard to do, but I believe you that it can be done. But to me, this is an insightful position. I've seen so many positions where you can easily, like with a glance at a position, convince yourself that a human could solve it and a computer couldn't do it without, eons worth of computing. They're almost trivial, such as, a wall of pawns that extends across the board and there's no possibility of a breakthrough. But this one is at a completely different conceptual level, and it's fascinating to me, and I would really love to spend a bit more time as a chess player and as a computer scientist studying it. So thank you very much for that position.
Oh, thank you. And I wanted to put something on screen that helped to convey, at a minimum, the great appeal that correspondence chess has still for human beings, even in this neural net age.
Even at 14 to 16 hours a day for 10 years? Okay.
Well, keep in mind that all the games in a world championship are occurring at the same time. So
Sure.
they're not operating in serial, they're operating in parallel. So I literally have more than 30 games going at the same time. And keeping on top of those requires a lot of equipment, a lot of time, and a very understanding family.
Thank you.
We understand your hard work, and so we have great, I would say, respect for this. And before we close, Ingvi Björnsen, you are also a game solver. Do you have still a question? Are you also a chess player? Ingvi. Apparently he is not there, and that's difficult, of course. Martin Müller, you are here. Jon, I think they all show up, but they are not.
Yeah, but I do not have a chess question. Sorry.
Okay, yes, I understand that. That's probably too. We should take another game. So then we leave it. We leave it with chess. And I thank you very much. I enjoyed your lecture very, very much. And I think the best is now I give the floor to Michael Hartisch, because he is the official chair of the session, who is now, I would say, assumed to follow up your speech. Thank you very much, and good luck with your competition at the moment. We follow you. We will not have a look you time and again because you have your own work. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to us and to show your, I'll say, the progress of computer chess over the years. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jaap. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And thank you to the organizers as well for having to make this so easy for me to come in and do this. I appreciate their work profoundly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jon. Thank you, Jaap.